45 years ago, a great phenomenon reached our planet. The Star Wars saga changed lives and created a global family. The story, the music, the battles, but above all, the fantastic characters enthralled millions of fans around the world. Here today in London, let us recall some of the adventures that faced a truly...
Did you hear that? They shut down the main reactors. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness.
My head!
Please welcome the man inside C3PO, Anthony Daniels! Look at you all. Look at that. Wow. Come on in, sit down. Welcome everybody. Do you have a note from your mother while you're late? What is your name?
Charlie.
Charlie, see me afterwards, okay? Well, welcome. Now, I can see that this is MCM Comic Con, which is a problem for me because here at this great event, it's not all about Star Wars, which I find very curious, okay? Star Wars, of course, the most important thing in my life, and possibly in the lives of some of you. But it leaves me somewhat bereft, because normally I would be working with a counterpart, BB-8, R2-D2, Luke Skywalker. But today, it is just me. I am on my own. So what it occurs to me is that you could be my counterpart today. You could ask me questions, and if I know the answer, I can tell you. But of course, sensible people will know all the answers, won't they? Yes, and why will they know? Because they will have read my book, I Am C3PO. I hope this is a close-up. Yes, all the answers that you could possibly need are in here, available here today at Comic-Con. So, I wonder is there anybody here who hasn't actually seen a Star Wars movie? Anybody? You haven't seen a Star Wars movie? No, be kind, be kind. You haven't, stand up, please. You have come dressed as an elf or something.
Something along those lines.
What?
Something along those lines, yeah.
Something on those lines, and you've never seen a Star Wars movie?
No, I find them kind of confusing.
You find... do you know what it's about?
No.
What's your name?
Beatrice.
Beatrice, okay. Well, we're deep doo-doo here, and it's like, who can explain to Beatrice what Star Wars is about? You look like you know. What is Star Wars about?
I've no idea.
What?
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. No, what? You look like you know what Star Wars is. It's going to be a very difficult morning. Bear with me. What's it about?
The battle between good and evil.
Good answer. Battle between good and evil. Yes. But what is Star Wars really about? Is he your dad? I'm so sorry. Okay, what's Star Wars about?
I know what Star Wars is about. It's pretty much about a young lad called Luke Skywalker who...
It's a battle between good and evil. It's about Luke Skywalker. What's Star Wars about?
It's basically a messy family affair.
You're talking about King Charles No, you're not. It's a story not about King Charles. It's a messy family affair. It's Luke Skywalker. It is a battle between good and evil.
It's about hope.
It's about hope. Okay, we're getting near. It's about hope. It's good and evil. It's not about King Charles.
It's about a golden droid that has...
Alas, it's about the golden droid. It is the story of a golden droid who has been bullied for the last 45 years, who's been picked on, yes? But I am here today on his behalf to stand up for droids everywhere. Now, Beatrice, are you any clearer what it's about?
Sure.
She doesn't sound very certain, does she? So, look, in the minutes that we have left, and apologies for a little late start, does anybody here have a question that they would ask of the only person on this planet, not just in London, not just the MCM, on this planet, the only person who has been in all 9 Star Wars films? And to survive to tell the tale today. Yes, sir.
What happened to your red arm?
What happened to... This is going to confuse Beatrice like you have no idea. Beatrice, at one point, J.J. Abrams, on episode 7 of the 9 films, insisted that 3PO had a red arm. Why? Beatrice? Why? Anybody? Why did 3PO have a red arm? It what? He lost his arm. It was spare part surgery. And JJ said he's got a red arm. Why? It shows history. You know, like the silver leg in the first film. And I said, but, you know, that was subtle. And he said, yeah, sure, nobody noticed. So, you know, talk about sublime to ridiculous. He said, it's got to be red. And I hated the red arm. It was 3PO hated the red arm. He didn't like to say anything. He was too polite. But there I was with this red arm. And so every day on the set, I would approach JJ and say, no forgiveness, no forgiveness. I had buttons made, no forgiveness. And then, if you look carefully, at the last shot of that film, 3PO is waving to the Millennium Falcon with his gold arm. JJ actually corrected it digitally for the last shot, and that was a little present, because I loved working with JJ, particularly on The Rise of Skywalker. Everybody enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker? I'm sorry? Yes, it's Friday morning. Everybody enjoy The Rise of Skywalker? Oh, so thank you so much. Who liked, let's just go through some of the film. Episode 1, yes? Episode 2? Episode 3? Episode 4? Episode 5? Episode 6? The one with the Ewoks. Episode 7? 8? 9? You're totally indiscriminate, aren't you? You just like everything. You like the whole thing. Okay. Another question. So what happened to the red arm? It is in a museum or JJ's private museum somewhere, and I don't want to see it again. Yeah. 3PO feels much better with the gold. So another question. Yes. Right in the middle there, CJ, if you would.
No problem.
Here we go.
Which of the 9 movies was the most fun to make and why?
Which of the 9 movies was the most fun to make and why? It was episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, because for the first time in several years, 3PO had a proper role. Yeah. And also working with JJ is like working with a 14-year-old. His enthusiasm and his knowledge of Star Wars and his love of Star Wars is remarkable. The episode 7 started many, many months before with a phone call from Kathleen Kennedy, who said, hi, I'm Kathleen Kennedy. I'm the producer of the next Star Wars film, and the director is J.J. Abrams. Would it be all right if he called you? Would it be all right if J.J. Abrams called me? Yeah. So I let him pay for the call, and he came through, and he was bubbling with enthusiasm. And that did not stop from there on. It was a total joy. The film went through many transitions and didn't quite end up the way it started out, but that's show business for you. That is my favorite. My least favorite, probably, but actually my favorite to watch, is episode 4. But it was very difficult to make for everybody, not just me. Another question from... here we go, leaping around. You very sure. Okay, the young man here who thought that it was all about good and evil, I think.
Why did C3PO have red eyes in the last movie?
Why did 3PO have red eyes? He was so hungover, it was embarrassing. When you are like that, you have the red eyes. I once had a hangover on... Don't you love these modern bottles that you actually can't get into, or if you do, you drown yourself? Here we go. Actor on stage drinking. Why did he have red eyes? Because he wasn't himself. He was having like a Sith message, and the Sith are evil people, and they probably all have red eyes, but I can't remember, and I don't care what color their lightsaber is, frankly. But it was a very good effect. But the first time we tried it, I actually looked in a mirror, and they twiddled the controls, and suddenly a face that I had known since the last century was completely transformed by these really quite frightening red eyes. But it was a great effect, wasn't it? Another question. Yes, young man, if you would stand up and project. Yes, I used young man. Wait a minute. This is a microphone. It works if you speak into one end of it.
Oh, that's much better.
That's
Thank
the good
you.
end, yes.
Thank you, and thank you for the compliment. What was 3PO's proudest moment?
What was 3PO's proudest moment? That's so good. There would have been a number, and probably it would be in the film with Ewoks, because they're kind of a little irritating to work with, because I couldn't see them, and we kept bumping into each other. But of course, it appears that they think I am some sort of god. That was a proud moment, but it got better, because Han Solo, who had replaced R2-D2 as 3PO's, as it were, counterpart from the first movie into the second, episode 5, Han Solo had an attitude problem, didn't he? Impossible, man. And there was a point where, having explained to the Ewoks our adventure, 3PO is standing there, and Han Solo is over a cooking pit. He's over the flames. He's saying, 3PO, what are they saying? And 3PO replied, rather smugly, I have to say, it appears, Captain Solo, that you are to be the main course at a banquet given in my honor. So I think that was his proudest moment. He had others, but generally he was the kind of fall guy for all the stuff that happened. Because he will always be a machine, but it depends where he's placed and who he's placed with, how all the drama works out. So he's been great fun to play, but it depends on what the script gives him, and actors have to put up with what they're given. A question over here. Yes, young man wearing a Boba Fett shirt. Stand up if you will. What's your name?
Alex.
Alex, right. Look, okay, what's your question, Alex?
What was the difference between making the original movies and the newer movies?
That's a very good question, thank you. The difference, back in the early days, you know, Star Wars was all... I love the effects because often R2-D2 was being pulled along by a string. And various effects were done with mirrors, all sorts of tricks you can do at home. Then, of course, in the prequels, things had been invented, great toys, the world of digital, and George went a little over the top, possibly. And then with 7, 8, and 9, we went back to having real sets, which are much more fun to work with. Now, of course, you don't need sets at all. You go into a thing called a volume, which is a wraparound digital set. You just fix the flooring and put a wind machine in there. You don't have to go to Tunisia or some strange countries. They save a lot of money on flying the crew around. On the other hand, the volume costs millions of dollars to rent. So it has been fun. Yeah, it's been fun, but it has come a transition. But all the time you're looking for the script, all the time you're looking for a really good story and really good characters. And you would be amazed how many real puppeteers create some of the figures that you see. And you have Brian Herring here today, who made BB-8 happen. And here's the great thing. Back in the day, I had the script, and I've told this story many times, and it's in my book. Did I say I'd written a book? Oh, I did, okay. Back in the day, I had the script for about 6 months whilst they created the costume, the C3PO costume around me. And I kept reading these scenes, 3PO. 3PO would say, you know, where are you going? And then it had R2 beeps a reply. And 3PO would say, well, what makes you think there are settlements over there? And R2 in the script said, beep, 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 in the script. And so it went on. The first day's filming, actually, to be honest, it was the second day's filming, because the first day's filming, I didn't really have any verbal interaction with R2-D2. First day, on the other hand, he interacted with me and tried to kill me, basically, because he was remote controlled from over there, and that guy could not see the stop mark here. Well, R2-D2 certainly couldn't see the stop mark. So on the nth day, I said to George, this is really confusing. I'm talking to myself. There's no reply, there's no conversation. It's all me, and I'm going nuts. Could you make a sound when I finish my words? Could you, like, make a beep or something? Oh, sure. George really couldn't have been less interested, so we started that scene again, actually. Where are you going? Oh, or a beep. And from then on, I just did the dialogue, or I used to write out R2's thoughts, so I had it all in my head, and I did it. Then we move, and that's how it was. R2 was totally silent until Ben Burt, months after we'd finished filming, added all those beeps and sighs and whistles, which are his own whistle and so on. And when I saw the premiere of that film, wow, R2-D2 talking to me and vice versa, you know. Ben Burt won an Oscar for that, and the lightsabers, all that kind of thing. But move on to episode 7, and we have the delightful BB-8. And BB-8's about that big, and there's Brian Herring in green, and, you know, BB-8. And suddenly Brian goes, beep, 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 and I was like totally shocked. And Brian did this perfect thing. And the only problem was that I had to remind myself not to look at Brian in his green suit, but down at BB-8. But it was the first time that I was working with a droid that actually made a sound. And then a remarkable breakthrough in episode 9. Brian Herring still there with the sticks in his green clothes, manipulating BB-8. And here's a miracle. Suddenly they realized, wouldn't it be clever if Brian actually said words instead of beep, 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 beep? made it much easier for Daisy Ridley and the rest of us to understand him. So that is one of the big progresses, a very simple one. It would have been so much easier back in the day if a stage manager had read R2-D2's lines, but that was a long time ago. Another question. Yes, sir.
Hiya. Just what do you like to think happened to C3PO after episode 9?
What would I like to think that happened to 3PO? It was interesting, when we were talking about episode 9, at some point I said to JJ, because in 7 and 8 he hadn't had much to do, and I said, maybe it is time for 3PO to have a dignified end. A melting down, being destroyed. Kindly, but forever. And JJ said, not on my watch. And I loved him for that, because towards the end of the book, I wrote a, did I tell you? I wrote a book. And on the other side, it's got half of my face. It's quite clever, isn't it? Towards the end of the book, I do talk about it. What will happen to 3PO in the end? What do you think? Is it the end? Is it over? For me? For him? Is it over? Thank you so much. Never. 3PO is too good a character to wander off, but he does need things to do, whether I'm involved or in the future. You know, life goes on. Another question. Young man in the Skywalker outfit, a mic is coming to you right now. Be brave. Stand up. What's your name?
Zach.
Wonderful name, Zach.
Who is your favourite person to work with and why?
That is such a difficult... Do you know how difficult that question is, Zach? Because if I name one person, all the hundreds of others will go, he didn't like working with me, huh? It's very difficult to pick one person out. I'll try. Kind of difficult, actually. I will have to say that from the start, Sir Alec Guinness was absolutely remarkable to me. And if I may, I will tell you a story that is in the book. I said I wrote a book, right? And it will stay with me forever, because on the original film, we all went out on an aeroplane to Tunisia, Tatooine, if you will. And when we got to the absolutely disgusting airport, and, you know, there was a limousine for Sir Alec and his wife, and there was a bus. So there was, you know, I was on the bus, wasn't I? And as I was getting on, he sort of beckoned me over, and he got out of the vehicle, and he said, have they given you your per diem yet? I had no idea what a per diem was. I'd never been in a film. Per diem means your pocket money, because they seem to have given me rather a lot, and I think you should have some. Well, how can you not adore a man like that? Absolutely. So he was my first favorite. And then Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. I don't think you realize what a difficult job he had. There he was, very much dressed like Zach there, in a kind of neat costume. Okay, you could sit down in it and, you know, do other stuff, but unlike mine. But there he was, being the totally straight, honest hero, the good guy. And he was surrounded by people in gold costumes, big black masks, hairy suits, all sorts of wacky stuff. People having fun, overtly. And there he was being, you know, hey, the good guy. So I had great, great respect for him. And then, so it goes on. And if we go right to the end now, there is an actor in all of the last 3 movies who never stops working, and his name is Oscar Isaac. And he is not only a phenomenal actor, can change character just like that, but he was so funny on set, and sadly a lot of it is missing in the final cut, because he used to persecute 3PO in such a funny way that I'd be giggling inside the suit. You can't tell, because 3PO has a straight face all the time. So probably Oscar Isaac as we come to the end. But that's not to say, Zach, that I don't love every other member of the cast. Thank you. Another question. In the middle there, you're waving a toy at me, and I'm not sure what it is. Stand up and project. What is it? A love cat. Okay, next question, because I think it's going dangerous. What is a love cat?
A luff cat? That is scary.
Yes. So another question. Stuffed animals, what? At the end here.
Hello, Tony, mate. If you never got the role of C3PO, what direction is your career going?
Next question. Young lady over there. No, seriously. Young lady there. The other famous story is, of course, my agent ringing me in 1975 saying there's this American man called George Lucas who's going to make a low-budget science fiction film, and he wants to see you for the part of a robot. And I just sort of said, no. And she said, don't be so stupid. What do you mean, no? I said, I didn't want to pay a robot in a low-budget science fiction film by an American. And she said, don't be so stupid. Go and meet him. You never know what it could lead to. Because I was very snobby. I think I'd been acting on television and radio and stage for a couple of years. And, you know, Shakespeare and stuff like that, you know, important. You know, poncing about on stage, my lord, and all that stuff. And I did go and meet George, and he wasn't at all what I thought he would be. He was tiny, he was shy, he was exhausted. He was seeing everybody in England for a role, because many of you will be surprised that Star Wars mostly is made in England. And who knows what changed my life? What in his office changed my life? It's in the book. Please get the book. There'll be a test on it later. It was a painting by Ralph McQuarrie, a concept painting of the character. And I looked at that face in the painting, and it was like, it was almost like a love. He wanted me to go into the frame of the picture, or I wanted him to come out. The next day I read the script, and the only person that I understood, liked, connected with, nothing to do with me, this script, was 3PO. I understood him. And what is great for me at this point in my life and yours is how much 3PO seems to have connected with the fan base in general, but particularly people who are slightly nervous about being in society, being in our world, a little worried about things, a little concerned. And I met somebody who said, as a child, he used to hide, watching it on TV, on video, he used to hide behind the furniture if something strange was happening. And then he realized that 3PO on screen was frightened too. And he was there saying, we should get out of this dreadful place, sort of thing. He was admitting to having feelings that weren't grown up or manly or whatever. And I take that as a great addition to just playing the role, that he has an importance to people that I never guessed at, but I totally recognize. Another question. Yes, young man in the center there. Yes, you, sir. Stand up. Be proud. Here we go. Mic coming to you now. No, just hand it over. You can hand it over. He can. Okay. Here we go.
Hey,
better be a good question. That took so long to set up. I can't believe it. Look at you. Look at that handsome face.
That's not a handsome face, no.
We'll work on the costume later, but go.
You've talked a lot about the sequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Yeah. What's your favourite memory from the prequel trilogy?
From the prequels? Favourite?
Favourite moment or memory?
Help. What's my favourite? Being in Australia. Fantastic. We shot them at the Fox Studios in Australia. I'm trying to think of favourite because, actually, a bad memory. In the second film, you remember episode 1, 3PO was a puppet. And it was the most beautiful creation, and the creator was given the job of manipulating this puppet. Come to episode 2, I said, well, I can do that. It's a form of acting which the Japanese invented called bunraku, which means that you, the audience, don't see the man in black who is wielding this puppet that is attached to his front, and the arms are on sticks and so on. You ignore him. You accept this trope that this actor, this dummy, is real. So there I was practicing in Australia with this very heavy puppet attached at my head, at my waist, at my knees, his foot attached to the front of my foot, his arms on sticks in my hand, and it was and you could see right through. Trouble was, of course, his head was in front of mine, so I couldn't see the person I was talking to, Padme, for instance, and I had to make sure that his feet lifted up and so on. All was fine, and it was really, I got used to it. You know, it was a struggle. Big Steadicam type harness, heavy and all that. We are now in Matmata, the homestead. Do you remember? The hole in the ground, Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru. And there I am introducing Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala, his beloved. And I looked at the floor of this original settlement, this hole in the ground, and I said, well, it's a bit rocky, can you put boards down? Because often you don't see them, but there are floorboards or carpet under your feet as you're working. If the camera doesn't see it, you don't see it, but it's there. There is a floor. This was a rocky floor, and I said, you know, and they said, well, we haven't got any boards. Oh, all right. I mean, we are in the middle of nowhere in Tunisia. And so we started. Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru, please may I present so-and-so, you know. So that was a wide shot. We then go into a 2-shot and a 3-shot, whatever. And finally, and everything was perfect. Everything was absolutely perfect. Tickety-boo. Until it was 3PO's close-up, which meant the camera would be facing me, kind of looking up, seeing me from about here probably. And so we just went, action. At that moment, a foot, there were 4 feet, 2 of them were mine, 2 of them were his. One of those feet hit a rock on the floor, and I went absolutely, at 32 feet a second, I went that way. The crash, it stays with me, to be honest. The crash was astounding. The silence afterwards was stunned. It was a stunned silence. And then I think George or Don Bees, my great helper, are you okay? And at that point, I wiggled my toes because I thought I might have broken my spine. One of the tests is if you can wiggle your toes, you're okay. I was in shock. Don Bees was now running. He picked me up. I was lying on the ground. He undid all the straps of the costume, whatever, and he stood me up and held on. I was in shock. You don't go down wearing many pounds of plastic and metal without wondering what you've done to yourself. So that was bad. And then I looked down, and 3PO was smashed on the floor. His whole left side just smashed, all the plastic shattered, bits of wire. And I was shocked a double time because I'd hurt him. Through tripping over, I'd hurt him. And I was really quite upset. And then Don comes over and he said, well, it's your close-up. And he cut the whole of the costume, the dummy, in half. Just cut it with snippers. And there's a lot of heavy metal work in there and whatever. And then in that scene, suddenly action, Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru, because I was only wearing the top. It was so easy. It was brilliant. You know, we should have done like that from the beginning. And then, of course, George Lucas decided, there was a scene later, because it was the one puppet in the world. There was a scene later, though, where Padme dressed 3PO up in gold, and I won't go into it. It's in the book. But it was a really touching scene where 3PO explained that it was very difficult being like this, being naked, because as a protocol droid, it's one of the worst things you could do. Be naked, you know, in front of all these humans, and you're meant to be protocol and etiquette. It was a cruel fate. And then Padme says, well, hey, there's some parts here. The little boy didn't have time, but there's some parts here in the garage where you've been living for 18 years and you haven't noticed, in the middle of a floor, there is the part. And she dressed 3PO up. And 3PO was so happy happy to be complete, and the aunt and uncle came in. They were happy. Padme was happy. Everybody was happy. And then George went, no, we're not doing that. I had to redo everything, including the scene where I'd smashed the puppet, in the Rusty costume, which Justin Dix took a gold costume and did a paint job on it and made him rusty and scuzzy. Why am I telling you this? I can't remember. Anyway, it was so you asked me about a sequel thing. It was a scary moment. Another question. Young man in red, right in front of I can't see. Yes.
Hello. If C3PO had a lightsaber, what color would it be?
He wouldn't have a lightsaber. Are you crazy? It's like when people say, if you're a biscuit, a cookie, what kind of cookie? Don't waste my time. I'm an old man. I don't have time to answer this shit. Another question. I don't care about lightsabers or all that. Do you have a better question?
Another question?
No, he doesn't. Give up.
What's your experience on the Lego games?
I love Lego. Absolutely love Lego. Some of the best spin-off stuff, and I've been lucky to do spin-off stuff, are the Lego games, because the inventiveness, and anybody watch the Star Wars Lego Chronicles, the Yoda Chronicles, things like that. We had so much fun doing that. And the one thing in our home, when you come round for a glass of wine, the one thing in the dining room is a Lego sculpture about that big, which I was given by the team at Lego for my great work on the Lego stuff. Lego is one of the cleverest, simplest games ever, and has, from a tricky beginning just in the early 80s, it has become a hugely supportive member of the film industry and the toy industry. I love Lego. Can I be bothered to stick them together? No, but I was lucky enough to present the AT-AT at the Lego shop in Leicester Square. Huge fun to be associated. Another question.
Can you reveal anything about the future of Star Wars?
The future of Star Wars. That's a really good question that I can't answer, because if you think back, there was only one Star Wars film. It was called Star Wars until they retitled it A New Hope. And when that film opened, there was no advertising. There was no budget for advertising in 1977. A few people went to the cinema and saw it and were amazed and ran out and brought their friends. The friends brought friends. We call that going viral these days. Not an expression that happened back then. It went viral, and you had the movies, because of all of you. You liked it, so they made another and another. Now, maybe that main story is over, the story of the Skywalkers, etc., or as we know, the gold robot. But now all these spin-offs of Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian, all that kind of thing, which have found a new audience. There's always something for somebody, for everybody. There is a character that even Beatrice there, surely there is something you will like in this movie. Beatrice, will you watch one of the movies for me? Shrug. Why do I bother? Why have I spent all these years flogging myself inside metal and plastic, and you just go, Episode 4, watch it. It'll be good. I have quite a big role in it, yes. The future of Star Wars, Disney paid, what was it, $6.4 billion, $6.5 billion to own the rights. They're not giving up on it yet. Another question.
Who is your favourite Star Wars character besides C3PO?
Who is my favourite Star Wars character besides C3PO? That's a really tricky question. I used to like Chewbacca a lot, but maybe that was to do with Peter Mayhew. I love BB-8 actually because he's cheeky. He's very cheeky, and in a rather more inventive way, I think, than R2 was. But again, you're down to brilliant editing. Who else is in these movies? I don't know. There's too many people in them. One reason I liked Episode 4, the original, was there wasn't that many people. You knew who the bad guy was, there's some good people, as somebody said, good and evil. It was easy back then. Now, there's too many Jedis, there are too many lightsabers of who cares what color, because I don't. It is quite, if you look, I was looking at a Palatoy, how do you say, collection box with all those characters in yesterday, and really the inventiveness of the design team is quite extraordinary, and there is something for everybody. So I don't have a totally, oh, yes I do, Salacious Crumb. Do you remember Salacious Crumb? Now that was a puppeteer, Tim Rose, who had a glove puppet on, and he snarked and he did the voice at the same time. And he really, in Jabba's palace, he used to keep me amused, I tell you. And one day I said, can I have a go? And I put my hand up this thing, and I kind of did that and flapped the mouth and did attitude. It was totally not Salacious Crumb. It wasn't anything. It was just my hand inside feathers and fabric. Whereas Tim Rose, a skilled puppeteer, could really make that character come alive. And beastly though he was, I did secretly like him. And actually, I've just remembered my other favorite character, Darth Maul. Because he is totally evil. No, oh, I think I'll go to the, after being so evil, I'm going to be on the light side again, you know, Darth Vader being forgiven. None of that. Darth Maul just kills people for fun. I mean, it was so out there. It's all right in the movies. Don't do it at home, okay? All right. We're coming to the end now, so I want a particularly wonderful final question before you burst into a rapturous round of applause. What is your final wonderful moment there?
Well, between the originals and the prequels, how easy was it for you to snap back into C3PO?
How easy was it to snap back in the sort of after various years of absenteeism, if you will, to snap back into 3PO? It's a very good question, and it's a very simple answer. During all that time, I was lucky enough to be doing things like the Yoda Chronicles, to be doing other Lego shows, doing the Clone Wars, all these spin-off activities involved 3PO being in a studio without the gold suit on, but kind of pretending he was there. And often what was delightful, each time I went to a new studio, the engineer, the guy behind the glass, would kind of be stunned because he said it is like watching the gold suit in front. And the reason for that is 3PO is very upright, very correct, very tense. And his voice comes from being like that. So if I kind of slouch, and you know, it's harder to make the voice happen like that. But I've been lucky enough to do all these things, which keeps me in the mode of 3PO, whether it's the radio serial episodes, which were great for National Public Radio, or it's the commercial for PC World, which was one of my favorite jobs always. R2-D2 and C3PO in a PC world in Essex, not understanding Earth gadgets, like a hairdryer, not that 3PO would need one, but a fan, a refrigerator, and one of the effects I loved. So they're roaming around this huge store out in Essex, a real store, and at one point 3PO opens a refrigerator door. You can watch it online, it's hysterical, PC World. Opens the door and steam comes out, or gas comes out, and he reels back, and his eyes are all, you know, fudged over. And the effects were so clever. And the way they did that effect of the smoke coming out of the fridge was they took the smallest member of the crew and stuffed him inside with a fire extinguisher, which just squirted. And that is the sort of thing, like putting something on a string, that's the sort of thing you can do at home. And do watch it, it's the funniest commercial, I adored it. A last question, I feel. Who's got the best question in the world? Did you ask a question? Because you can only have one. Did you ask a question before? You're going to have to come here, come up on stage. Come up on stage. Yes, yeah, yeah. Enough false modesty. Just get up here. Gee, you give some. What is your name?
My name is Luke. True story.
True story. Your parents, are they fans?
No.
What's wrong with them?
I don't know. They don't have class, you know.
They don't have how well you put it, do they? So your name is Luke, and what's your question, Luke?
Okay, well, I wasn't expecting to come up here, so thank you. I can't believe I'm looking at C3PO.
You're not. You're looking at Anthony Daniels. This guy. What? Just get on with it. Who's the star of the show? Is it you or me? It's over there. Right. This is my show. What? You have a moment of...
Okay, so...
You just have one moment. Get on with it.
So
you ready?
I'm ready.
Go.
So you were in 12 Star Wars films, right? You said 9, but you're in 12. The others are the holiday special. Yeah. Clone Wars, right? You voiced Clone Wars, and Rogue One. You were in Rogue One for a minute, right? So was that a reshoot, or did they always plan for you to be in Rogue One briefly?
That's a really irritating question. Actually, they did, because I remember who directed it. What? Gareth. Gareth came round to see us one day, and he gave us the whole story of Rogue One, like he would not stop. My wife Christine and I just sat there like, I have no idea what he's talking about, but he's talking so enthusiastic. And then he sort of said, as it were in the middle of this speech, he said, I'd love you to be in a scene, you know, just a cameo, just to walk through, would you do that? And I just went, oh, yes. And because it would be really important to have this character, you know, continuity. I mean, I'd be so grateful if you did this. And I said yes. But you see, if you weren't, you know, we just wouldn't be. Yeah, Gareth, I said yes. Oh, and he calmed down. It's one of the best days of shooting that I ever had, and I loved the movie. So you know all about these movies, don't you?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd. I do a Star Wars podcast.
You do a Star Wars podcast? And have you read my book? Did I say I'd written a book?
I didn't know about the book.
Yeah, have you got it?
I know about the book, yeah. I know about it.
Have you bought one?
No.
Pardon?
Not bought one yet.
Not bought one yet. Okay. Well, here's the thing. You are now famous because you have appeared on stage with the book, What I Wrote. This book is for you, Luke.
Oh, can I hug
you? Oh, okay. That was entirely unrehearsed, as you could tell. We'll do it better next time. Okay? Do you know, I said earlier about when we made one film, it was only one film. And I actually thought, that's over, because it was uncomfortable for everybody. But because the audience, and some of you were there at the beginning, anybody was there at the beginning, put your hand up. Some of you are old enough to have been there at the beginning and remember it. And it was a life changer. And because of that, people like yourself got us to do another film, and another, and another. And the common thread, and I know I've talked about the book, but when I read my final draft all the way through, I was actually surprised, because it took me a couple of years. I was surprised when you read it sequentially, how many times I refer to the fans around the world, the 501st, all that kind of thing. And then I realized that without the fans, and it's a fairly obvious summation, without the fans, there would have been one film. Without the fans, I would have had to find a proper job all these years. Didn't have to. I have my friend 3PO here. You, the fans, apart from Beatrice, obviously, but you know, can't win them all, have made Star Wars what it is. Your friendship to us in the films, your friendship to friends around the world, and I mean, even in Russia, there are Star Wars fans, and I have spoken to them. Around the world, Australia, India, wherever, there are Star Wars fans, and it's a great family, really good family, and you are a part of it. And one of the lovely lines in the last film was when Oscar Isaac, as Poe, says, what are you doing, 3PO? And 3PO says, taking one last look, sir, at my friends. Well, today is not a last look, but I think of you as my friends, and I think of you as being friends with everybody in this room. And thank you for your friendship today and being my counterpart at MCM. Thank you.